Hi, I'm Violet Ellen Ralph. I'd like you to know a little bit about my life. I was born December 18, 1893 in Long Parish, Hampshire, England. My parents were Charles Ralph and Elizabeth Amelia Lewis. They married in September 16, 1887 in Long Parish, Hampshire, England. I had 6 siblings. Francis born 1885. Ernest Charles born 1888. Frederick Ralph born 1890. William Percy born 1891. Albert born 1896. And lastly Leonard Lewis born 1898. There is a story that when I was born my father said, "That's the lot," and from then on I was known as Lottie. But obviously I wasn't the last to be born. I went to Chilbolton School, and was given a Certificate of Merit in 1905 for never missing an attendance for 5 years. Between 1914 and 1918 was the time of World War I, and sadly my brother Leonard Lewis died August 21, 1915, while serving in France. In 1918, I was working at a place called the Red Bungalow in Tidworth. On my afternoons off, among other things, I would go walking. There was an army hospital nearby, and there was an Australian soldier, Norm Trebilcock, who had been recuperating after a gunshot wound while in France. He would exercise his colonel's horses, and one particular day he went in the vicinity of Tidworth, and this is where I met him. His colonel's horses were from then on often exercised in that area. It wasn't too long before Norm popped the question that I had been waiting for him to ask. I married Frederick Norman Trebilcock on December 7, 1918, in St. Mary the Less Anglican Church in Chilbolton. I was 24 years old when we married, and Norm was 27. I had to get everything ready for the wedding and wait to be notified when Norm's leave was imminent. His brother Reg was to be best man, and a friend of mine, Elizabeth Brown, was to be the bridesmaid. No one thought to invite anyone from the village. Not a lot of advance notice was given when soldiers were to be granted leave, so it was lucky that Norm's brother and my bridesmaid were both in England. So everything worked out well. The rest of the Ralph family, of course, were there. The people in the village were disappointed that they didn't know the wedding was taking place, and they all said they would have come if they had known. My family lived almost opposite the church, so they walked over. Afterwards they all returned to the cottage for our small reception. Grandmother Ralph had bought a bottle of champagne in honor of the occasion. Grandfather Ralph would not partake, as he was a Calvinist Methodist and said that stuff would not pass his lips. So grandmother drank it and remarked that she felt a lot better for it. Sometime in 1919 the troops were sent back to Australia complete with their new wives. They sailed on the Bremen, arriving at Outer Harbour on July 23, 1919. We journeyed from Outer Harbour to Montacute in a pony and trap, which was a bit of a rough ride, with me being 6 months pregnant. Soon after, a reception was arranged and everything was set up in the big shed. I had to stay inside until all was ready. Then Norman's stepsister Winifred went in to get me, presenting me with a bunch of violets as my bouquet, saying, "Isn't it lucky that your name is Violet? Here Comes the Bride" was sung as I was escorted out to the shed, which was decorated with streamers and violets everywhere, and Norm's army colors were crisscrossed over the tables. It all looked very beautiful, and I was very touched. We moved into an old house on the block of land called California. The old place has had a hard life since then. In about 1923 we built our own home, which I named Monomeet, which means a place of beauty. We had 5 children, all born in South Australia. Our eldest Len was born in 1919, followed by Marge in 1920, June in 1923, Kath in 1925. And finally, our youngest, Brian in 1927. During World War II, everyone had to carry an identity card, not sure why it was issued from Gawler instead of somewhere a little closer. During summer, every year since about the mid-1930s, we spent time at the Council Caravan Park in Victor Harbor. The following is an article from Victor Harbor Times, Friday, January 20, 1967. Grandmother is a keen swimmer. A mother of 5 and grandmother of 11 children is a keen swimmer who enjoys a daily dip when she stays at Victor Harbor for a month each year. She is Mrs. V. E. Trebilcock, a 73-year-old widow who lives at Montacute. Mrs. Trebilcock has been coming to Victor Harbor for 35 years for the Christmas holidays. Since her husband died 2 years ago, her son has brought her to the Corporation Caravan Park, where she camps alone in a comfortable tent which he erects for her. Rain or shine, Mrs. Trebilcock would not miss her daily swim. She is a cheery soul and makes friends with adults and children alike. She has already booked her campsite for the next Christmas holidays. Sadly, on May 15, 1961, at age 69, Norm was tragically killed when the tractor he was driving jackknifed and was trapped under the trailer. After the death of Norm, I joined Legacy. Legacy grew out of the ashes of World War I. In the trenches of the Western Front during World War I, a soldier said to his dying mate, "I'll look after the missus and kids." This became known as the promise, and it is still kept today. Some 60,000 Australian service personnel were killed and more than 150,000 were wounded, many dying soon after. Legacy is still caring for tens of thousands of widows who have lost their loved ones and been affected by their partner's service. Legacy Clubs started as a small organization assisting local families. Today, there are 44 Legacy Clubs, plus one in London, providing emotional, social and financial support. I passed away on June 24, 1983, and was buried at Centennial Park Cemetery, Pasadena, South Australia. I'm so glad I got to share my story with you. Thank you for taking the time to watch this. That's it for now.